Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of absolute precision.
Right, like it's a math problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like engineering. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points to the screen and says, well, there it is. That's the problem.
It is comforting in a strange way. I mean, we are incredibly drawn to the binary, right? Broken or not broken.
Yeah.
Sick or healthy.
Totally. We want our biology to be visible
Mm.
and easily categorized. But the moment you step into the world of genetics, especially when you are looking at breed-specific health profiles, that clean binary x-ray machine just sort of shatters.
Oh, absolutely. It becomes incredibly murky.
Right. You're suddenly trying to navigate a diagnostic landscape that is just full of gray areas. And today, we are focusing on the health profile of a very beloved dog breed, which is the Cocker Spaniel.
A very popular breed, yeah.
And let me tell you, when you dive into the veterinary data on this dog, you are instantly hit with a laundry list of potential ailments. I mean, it legitimately looks like a medical textbook of worst-case scenarios.
I know, it can be really overwhelming for people. If you just read the raw data on predispositions, you might honestly wonder how the breed survives at all.
Right. But here's the thing for you listening at home. Even if you don't own a dog and have like zero intention of ever owning a dog, do not tune out.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than just pet care.
Exactly. Because the underlying mechanics we are exploring today, how genetics actually function, the sheer power of proactive health monitoring, and how daily physical habits intersect with our biology, these are universally fascinating concepts.
They apply to human health just as much as animal health.
Spot on. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this seemingly terrifying list of conditions. We really want to understand how creatures' anatomy, their genetic code, and their daily routine all just crash into each other.
I think that's a great approach.
Okay, let's unpack this. How on earth can an animal with so many documented potential health vulnerabilities still live a long, healthy, and largely uneventful life? Because it feels like a massive biological contradiction.
I completely understand why it feels contradictory. It really does. But the confusion usually stems from conflating two completely different concepts, right?
Which are?
Well, a hereditary predisposition versus a biological guarantee. And frankly, this is where a lot of people, whether they are looking at a pet's health or, their own genetic testing results, they just get entirely tripped up.
Oh, I've definitely done that. You look at a list of family history and think, well, that's it. It's destiny. The writing is on the wall.
Yeah, that is a very, very common misconception. But a predisposition simply means that, statistically speaking, because of shared genetics within a specific closed population like a dog breed, a certain condition shows up more frequently than the baseline average.
So it's just numbers.
Exactly. It's a mathematical probability across an entire group. It is absolutely not an inevitable fate for the individual animal sitting in your living room.
Okay, so a predisposition is basically a weather forecast, right? A high probability of rain doesn't guarantee you're going to get soaked on your commute today, but it means you would be pretty smart to carry an umbrella. Is that the right framework for looking at this breed?
That is a perfect framework. I love that analogy because having that forecast fundamentally changes your behavior.
You prep for it.
Right. A documented list of breed-specific health issues shouldn't induce chronic anxiety. It's meant to arm you with the exact same foresight that a trained veterinarian has.
So it's about being prepared, not panic.
Exactly. When you know what the subtle early warning signs look like, you catch changes before they become actual emergencies. In human and animal medicine alike, catching something in its infancy is often the single biggest factor in how manageable a condition ultimately ends up being.
It shifts you from a reactive mindset to a proactive one.
Yes, that's the entire goal of knowing these genetic profiles.
Okay, so let's look at what happens when an animal's physical biology actually sets a trap for itself. Building on this idea of genetic blueprints, the veterinary data points straight to the most physically obvious, iconic trait of the Cocker Spaniel, which is their ears.
Oh, those famous, beautiful ears.
Right.
They are a defining characteristic, absolutely, but they're also a perfect example of anatomy dictating vulnerability.
Because they are long, they hang very low, and they are heavily feathered with fur. I mean, how does that specific architecture turn into a medical issue?
Well, to understand that, you have to look at the shape of a dog's ear canal. So unlike a human ear canal, which is basically a straight horizontal tube leading to the eardrum, a dog's ear canal is actually shaped like an L.
Wait, like the letter L.
Exactly. It goes straight down vertically and then takes a sharp horizontal turn. So gravity dictates that debris and moisture naturally want to fall down and just settle at the bottom of that L.
Oh.
Yeah. Now put a heavy fur-covered flap over the top of that vertical drop. Those ears basically act like a thick weighted blanket. They severely restrict any airflow.
And when you eliminate airflow, you trap moisture and body heat.
Exactly.
Which means those ear canals are essentially tiny, unventilated greenhouses.
That is the biological reality and what thrives in a dark, warm, incredibly moist greenhouse.
Yeast and bacteria, I assume.
You got it. It is the absolute ideal breeding ground for them. They multiply rapidly, leading to a condition called otitis externa, which is basically just a medical term for inflammation of the outer ear canal.
Got it.
The sheer structure of the breed makes this an ongoing battle.
Okay, wait. If the issue is just this humid greenhouse effect, why can't I just vigorously clean out my dog's ears every single day? Like, just take a wipe, get in there, and completely eradicate the yeast before it even grows.
Because treating biology like a dirty kitchen counter is exactly how you turn a minor structural vulnerability into a massive chronic medical problem.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah. The skin lining the inside of that ear canal is incredibly delicate. It has its own natural defenses, including a protective acid mantle and a really delicate balance of beneficial microbes.
So if you scrub it.
If you aggressively overclean or if you use like the wrong technique or harsh solutions, you completely strip away those natural defenses. And worse, you create microscopic tears in the skin. Microabrasions.
Oh, I see. So the microabrasions cause irritation, the body responds with inflammation, and then the skin gets swollen and compromised.
And suddenly you've rolled out the red carpet for the exact pathogenic bacteria you were trying to eliminate in the first place.
Oh, man.
They just invade the compromised tissue. You've essentially tilled the soil in your greenhouse and added fertilizer.
That makes so much sense. So more cleaning isn't better.
Not at all. This is why technique matters far more than frequency. A veterinarian needs to teach you how to flush the ear gently, allowing the liquid to break up the debris at the bottom of that L shape without actually scraping the delicate tissue.
And there is a really fascinating early warning sign mentioned in the literature. Long before you see gross discharge or the dog is like pawing at its head in pain, the very first indicator of an environmental shift in that ear canal is often just a change in odor.
That's right. Odor is the canary in the coal mine here.
Really, just the smell.
Yeah, a healthy ear might have a faint, kind of neutral scent, but a noticeably strong, yeasty, or sharp new odor means the microbial balance has shifted.
Because they're multiplying.
Exactly. The yeast or bacteria are off-gassing as they multiply. Catching that smell early means you can intervene with a mild flush before it escalates into a full-blown infection that requires antibiotics.
But that requires an owner who is actually paying close attention. And the complications don't stop at the ear, right? Because the ear canal is, after all, just lined with skin.
Right.
Which brings us to the broader dermatological profile of the breed.
It's a very natural progression. Because the ear canal is continuous with the skin covering the rest of the body, breeds prone to ear inflammation often struggle with systemic skin issues.
So Cocker Spaniels have bad skin in general.
They are highly predisposed to general skin sensitivities and allergies, yeah.
The veterinary texts specifically highlight a condition called primary seborrhea. What is actually malfunctioning in the skin when a dog has seborrhea?
So seborrhea is fundamentally a defect in keratinization. That's the process by which the body produces new skin cells and sheds old ones.
Okay, cell turnover.
Right. In a dog with primary seborrhea, this turnover process just goes into absolute overdrive. The skin cells are multiplying far too quickly, and at the exact same time, the sebaceous glands, which produce the natural oils for the coat, they start overproducing as well.
So you have too many dead skin cells mixing with way too much oil.
Exactly. The old cells don't slough off cleanly. They stick together in these greasy, oily clumps.
Ugh, that sounds uncomfortable.
It is. It leads to severe flaking, a very distinct rancid odor, and a coat that feels incredibly greasy to the touch. It also compromises the skin barrier, making the dog highly susceptible to secondary bacterial infections.
So the cascading effect.
Exactly. And again, this isn't something you try to diagnose and fix with random shampoos you found online. It requires targeted veterinary therapy to actually regulate that cell turnover.
Okay, so up to this point, we've talked about highly visible, highly olfactory threats. Ears that smell like yeast, skin that is visibly flaking and greasy. You can rely on your senses to catch them.
Right. They announce themselves.
But what happens when an animal's biology is failing in a way that is entirely invisible to us? Because here's where it gets really interesting. We need to talk about their eye health.
Ah, the stealth threats. And they are profoundly stealthy.
Seriously. Imagine you're an owner. You look lovingly into your dog's eyes every single morning when you wake up. You feel like you know every expression they make.
Yeah.
But the tragic irony is, you could be staring into those eyes for months, completely oblivious to the fact that your dog is slowly, irreversibly going blind.
It's a very harsh reality to confront. But while an inflamed ear announces itself with a foul odor or a dog desperately shaking its head, degenerative eye conditions basically operate in complete silence.
The most prominent condition flagged across the data is progressive retinal atrophy, or PRA. What is mechanically breaking down in the eye when a dog has PRA?
What's fascinating here is the specific cellular nature of the degeneration. The retina is the light-sensitive layer of tissue at the back of the eye. It's packed with photoreceptor cells, the rods, which handle low light and peripheral vision, and the cones, which handle bright light and color.
Okay, rods and cones, just like humans.
Exactly. Now, in PRA, there is a genetic mutation that causes these photoreceptor cells to deteriorate over time, and it almost always follows a specific pattern where the rods begin to die off first.
Which means the very first symptom is night blindness.
Yes. The dog might be perfectly fine chasing a ball in the midday sun, but they start hesitating to go down the stairs at night, or, they seem unusually clumsy in a dimly lit hallway.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, the cones begin to fail as well, leading to total blindness.
But what I find absolutely wild is how brilliantly dogs mask this decline. The literature points out that because the vision loss is so incredibly gradual, taking months or even years, the dog has time to adapt. They don't just wake up blind and terrified.
They adapt masterfully. It's incredible. Dogs map their environments. They build a highly detailed 3D spatial map of your house in their heads.
Like a mental floor plan.
Exactly. They memorize exactly where the couch is, where their water bowl is, how many steps lead up to the porch. They also rely heavily on their whiskers to detect changes in air currents around furniture, and their hearing and sense of smell compensate immensely.
So they're essentially navigating via muscle memory and sensory feedback, and the owner's just standing there waving a toy thinking the dog can see it perfectly fine.
Right, until the owner decides to buy a new coffee table or moves a chair to vacuum, and suddenly the dog walks straight into it.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It really is. That is often the moment the illusion shatters. And sadly, by the time an owner notices the dog bumping into things, the retinal degeneration is usually in its final stages.
And PRA isn't the only stealth threat, right? There's also the risk of cataracts, where the lens of the eye becomes cloudy and blocks light from reaching the retina.
Yes, very common.
And glaucoma, which is a dangerous buildup of fluid pressure inside the eye that physically crushes the optic nerve. So a question is, how on earth do you stay vigilant about something you literally cannot see without becoming intensely paranoid every time your dog squints at the sun?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of healthcare, this is precisely why routine preventative screening is so critical. We often view a routine vet checkup as a formality or assume the vet is just trying to upsell us on tests.
Right, like an unnecessary add-on.
But preventative screening is the only mechanism we have to catch these invisible degenerative issues early. You cannot see the intraocular pressure of glaucoma building up by just looking at your dog across the kitchen.
Because it's all internal.
Exactly. You cannot spot the early cellular death of the retina. A veterinarian uses specialized ophthalmoscopes and tonometers to measure these exact metrics.
You simply have to trust the professionals and keep your appointment.
Yeah.
You cannot life hack your way out of a genetic retinal disease.
You really can't. You need the empirical data that only medical equipment can provide.
All right, so we've covered genetic blueprints like PRA and structural anatomical quirks like the heavy ear flaps. And for the most part, those are cards the dog is dealt. You can't alter their DNA, and you can't magically ventilate their ears without surgical intervention.
Right.
But now, I want to pivot to what I think is arguably the most empowering piece of information in this entire deep dive, because there is one monumental risk factor that the owner has total 100% control over.
The ultimate modifiable factor combating obesity.
Right. And I have to imagine a chubby dog isn't just carrying around a bit of extra cosmetic fluff. When we talk about obesity as a health crisis, what is it actually doing to the dog's biology?
The way we view fat has fundamentally changed in modern medicine. We used to think of adipose tissue fat as just passive storage, like a biological backpack of extra calories.
It's just dead weight.
Exactly. But we now know that fat is highly active tissue. It functions essentially as a massive endocrine organ.
Wait, seriously?
Yes! Fat cells constantly secrete hormones and inflammatory chemicals called adipokines right into the bloodstream.
Wait, so a dog carrying excess weight isn't just dealing with a mechanical problem. They're experiencing a state of chronic systemic inflammation.
That is the crucial takeaway here. Yes, there is the massive mechanical stress of extra weight grinding down their joints, increasing the risk of arthritis or torn ligaments. But the systemic inflammation is the silent killer.
That is wild.
Think about it. We just discussed how this breed struggles with inflammatory ear conditions and inflammatory skin conditions. If a dog is obese, their fat cells are actively pumping inflammatory chemicals throughout their body, essentially throwing gasoline on any existing biological fire.
That makes so much sense. It makes every single other condition harder to manage. So if a genetic predisposition to PRA or the physical structure of their ears are the cards the dog was dealt at birth, then meticulously managing their weight through daily nutrition and exercise, that is how you play the hand.
I couldn't have phrased it better myself. It is the foundation of resilience. If a dog's immune system isn't constantly exhausted from fighting baseline inflammation caused by obesity, it has far more capacity to handle a minor yeast flow up in the ear before it becomes a massive infection.
So weight management isn't just cosmetic.
Not at all. Maintaining a lean body condition is the single most effective preventative medicine an owner can administer.
Okay, we have unloaded a ton of heavy medical terminology today. Otitis, externa, seborrhea, progressive retinal atrophy, adipokines. To bring this all home, we have to synthesize this into a practical, everyday framework.
Definitely.
How does a person apply this knowledge without having a low-grade panic attack every single time their dog scratches its ear?
The most practical framework to adopt is the rule of watching for persistent changes.
Persistent changes. Define that for me.
It means separating an isolated incident from a pattern. Biology fluctuates, right? A single day where a dog skips a meal, or one random afternoon where they scratch their ear vigorously, or a brief moment of lethargy, that is not an emergency. Dogs have off days, just like we do.
I definitely have days where I sleep in, skip breakfast, and, scratch my head.
We all do. But the golden rule is duration and repetition. A general benchmark is 48 hours.
Okay, 48 hours.
If a change persists beyond a day or two ongoing itching, a head tilt that won't go away, a sudden reluctance to climb stairs that lasts through the weekend, that is when you abandon the wait-and-see approach and just book a vet visit. It's about spotting patterns, not hyperanalyzing single moments.
So what does this all mean for the starting point? The veterinary literature heavily stresses the importance of responsible breeding to mitigate these issues.
Breeding plays a massive role. Responsible breeders actively utilize genetic health screening. They can test the parents for the genetic markers of PRA, for instance, to ensure they aren't breeding two carriers and passing that blindness onto the litter.
Right, catching it at the source.
Exactly. An ethical breeder is trying to stack the biological deck in the puppy's favor.
I totally get that.
Okay.
But what if someone listening didn't go to a breeder? What if they rescued a 5-year-old Cocker Spaniel from a local shelter? They don't have the luxury of calling up the breeder and asking for a multi-generational genetic health history. Are they just flying totally blind?
Not at all. That is an incredibly common scenario. If you don't have the history, your focus simply shifts. You cannot control the genetic past, so you focus 100% of your energy on attentive daily care.
You play the hand you have.
Exactly. You implement the rule of persistent changes. You stay religious about their annual preventative vet exams to catch the invisible threats. And you keep them lean. Knowing the breed's general predispositions gives you a roadmap for what to look out for, even without a pedigree.
That's incredibly reassuring.
And it's worth emphasizing, when managed thoughtfully, these are incredibly vibrant, resilient dogs that live wonderful lives.
And that is the ultimate takeaway. A list of medical predispositions isn't a guaranteed death sentence. It's an instruction manual.
Exactly.
By acting as an attentive partner in their healthcare, watching for those persistent changes, trusting the diagnostic tools of a veterinarian, and controlling the controllable factors like obesity, you completely change the trajectory of their health.
You really do.
And frankly, this entire framework perfectly mirrors how we should view human health. We all have family histories we can't erase. We all have genetic predispositions. But our daily lifestyle choices, our physical activity, and our vigilance regarding changes in our own bodies, that is the hand we play.
100%.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
But before we go, this deep dive raises an important question for you to consider. If human beings intentionally bred dogs over centuries to possess highly specific aesthetic traits like those beautiful, sweeping, heavy ears of a Cocker Spaniel, knowing that those very traits actively work against the animal's natural biology by trapping moisture and practically guaranteeing chronic infections, what is our fundamental ethical responsibility to them? We literally designed their structural health vulnerabilities into existence simply because we liked how it looked. Does that change how we should view the moral and financial burden of their veterinary care?